For all the hype you hear among Republicans about Ron DeSantis, and for all the talk about a parade of candidates just itching to join the race, whether it's Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Tim Scott, or others, there seems to be this collective effort among many in the GOP to just ignore the most crucial fact about the 2024 presidential campaign right now. Donald Trump is the frontrunner to win the Republican nomination, and he's the frontrunner by a significant margin. And yet so many in the Republican Party are acting like he's not, or insisting he won't be the nominee, or trying to ignore him altogether. How is that possible? Donald Trump has been the Republican nominee for the last two elections, and he has a commanding lead in most polls. So how can the GOP possibly pretend he's not the frontrunner? Yesterday, the former president returned to the campaign trail in Davenport, Iowa. We spoke before a packed house for more than an hour. Reports from the scene said Trump's fans lined up around the block for much of the day to get inside. He still draws crowds, and most importantly, as it relates to the campaign, he still has many, many Republican voters firmly in his corner. An average of 8 major national polls taken in the last month show Trump with a commanding 14-point lead over Ron DeSantis. The other potential candidates like Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley all struggled to register a blip. So how can you square that with comments like these from New Hampshire Republican Governor Chris Sununu?
As far as former President Trump, I think he's going to run. Obviously, he's in the race. He's not going to be the nominee. That's just not going to happen. Thank you for your service. We're moving on. I just don't believe the Republican Party is going to say that the best leadership for America tomorrow is yesterday's leadership. That doesn't make any sense.
But how can he say that so confidently, that Trump won't win the nomination, when just about every piece of available evidence right now suggests he will? And yes, Chris Sununu may have selfish motivations here, as he too is weighing whether to jump into the race. But there's a fine line between trying to project a confident message and burying your head completely in the sand. Former Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan is another who seems to be ignoring the reality. He recently told the New York Times, quote, "I don't think Trump is going to get the nomination. The ace in the whole reason that he's unelectable. Even most of the MAGA knows this." Do they? Because they seem to be pretty enthusiastically behind him in poll after poll. And here's the thing. Electability doesn't seem to be the determining factor in how the Republican base is voting. Look at Pennsylvania, where far-right Republican Doug Mastriano ultimately got crushed in his bid for governor by 15 points. He's weighing a comeback in 2024 as he may make a run for the Senate. A new poll out yesterday shows he could fare very well in a Republican primary, despite getting walloped last time in the general. The survey gives Mastriano a commanding 18-point lead over his potential rival, Dave McCormick, putting a real dent in Paul Ryan's theory. All this rhetoric from high-profile Republicans sounds like wish casting. Many in the party establishment seem to want the former president to go away, but they're ignoring the fact that most voters in the party seem to be still behind him. Ignoring Donald Trump just isn't an effective strategy. It just turns the race into a referendum. Are you for Trump or against him? And if the vote were held tomorrow, the Republican elites might not like the answer. Joining us now is Allison Young, former senior staffer in the George W. Bush White House, now a Republican political strategist. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. You think I'm getting something wrong here?
I do, Dan, with all due respect, because in my opinion, and from party insider conversations, what I can tell you is, when you use the word ignoring him, I think it's exactly the opposite. And what it is, in my view, and in some in the party's view, is a strategic way of not putting air in Trump's balloon. So every time someone attacks him, you'll notice that the DeSantis isn't responding to him. Nikki Haley's not responding to him. Every time someone does that, they give him fodder, and then he gins up his base again and is like, everyone's against me. Look at, I'm against the man. So it's a very strategic effort to really remove him from the conversation and not give him the bait.
Okay, well, that would suggest, though, that my analysis is right, that they are ignoring him, but your point is that they're doing it on purpose. But also, how does that address the question of people pretending like he's not in the lead by a lot?
I don't know that anyone's pretending that he's not in the lead, Dan, but what you've got to look at is what these polls are saying 10 months until we get to Iowa. These are the same polls that told us for certain we are going to see a Hillary Clinton presidency.
Right, that's fair.
I don't give a lot of credence to the polls right now.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.